Okay, we're back right here at the PCC Multiverse. It's Gerald coming right back at you here. Thank you so much for listening. And I just truly appreciate everyone out there in this time of pandemic crisis to go ahead and check out our show each and every week. Cannot thank you enough for doing so. Well, I wanted to go ahead and before we move on with other oh gosh, move on with other topics. I wanted to talk and recap a little bit of what went on this past weekend at WrestleMania. WrestleMania 36 was not quite live. It was pre-taped. It was because of what's going on with the pandemic crisis, held over a 2 day period and shown over 2 day period to audiences this past Saturday and Sunday. It's gotten quite the opinion out there on the internet. Some people are hating it, some people are loving it, but everybody seems to be having an opinion on it. And here today to talk to me about WrestleMania 36 and share his thoughts on it, along with myself, is a good man indeed. He returns to us. He was here on Monday, but he's now here on Friday as well. It's Noah Ian Fein. And Noah, thanks a lot for stopping by on the program.
No problem. I've been watching the WWF. Yes, I just used the F word. Back from WrestleMania 3 onward. Now, I have been to WrestleManias 1, 2, 4, 5, and 10. But WrestleMania 36, I begged because I wanted to talk about this. We're not going to go through the whole thing, of course. It's too long.
No, but I do want to say that's two more WrestleManias than I've been to. So,
which one did you go to?
I went to the one here in Vegas, actually before I even moved to Las Vegas, and then Anaheim. Anaheim, just going to say personal reasons, was something I don't really have great memories of because something happened there, a thing with my, as far as from a family nature with my dad's health during that thing is. So I was worried more about my dad than the actual show itself, outside of the Shawn Michaels 60-minute Iron Man match. So for me, WrestleMania in Anaheim wasn't that memorable for me for altogether reasons. But you know what? I digress. I mean, it was something that they put on there. You and I both have been to WrestleManias. I've been a fan of pro wrestling ever since the LA Olympic Auditorium in the 1970s. To tell you how much that dates me, but I will say that they did put on an event. I'm going to go ahead and say first off, they did this under difficult circumstances. They felt they had to go ahead and provide a product. They didn't want to cancel it. I know a lot of people questioned that. I think I'm one of those people that questioned that logic, but they felt that they needed to go ahead and put on something out there for the fans. So that being the case.
You know what? Here's the thing. A lot of sporting events and a lot of things have closed or are closing. And you know what? Vince was right, and the superstars really didn't protest, and they were upset. They all could have walked out. They didn't. And you know what? I hate to say this, and I'm going to go on my soapbox here. Professional athletes are making more than the healthcare workers, and the healthcare workers seem to be more, if you see the memes, like Supermen. So you know what? I'll go with what Jim Ross said in his Grilling JR podcast. If you want to get a paycheck and you want to feed your family, then you got to work. And again, getting back to this controversial pay-per-view that we got split up into 2 nights, pre-taped, yada, yada, so on and so forth, and what have you. I didn't know how it was going to work. I stated my comments on Facebook, but after watching the 2 nights, and the previous WrestleManias are getting way too long now because Vince owns, he buried his competition back in 2001 with ECW and with WCW. AEW is kind of hit or miss. TNA, I think, is gone. So he's made these pay-per-views longer regarding WrestleMania. I don't know that if we get back to an actual audience again, if this, we go to comic book conventions twice, in a weekend, we go on a Saturday and Sunday. I don't know if this would work. That if
I actually think it would. I actually think it's better. I think a one-night deal like they've been doing for these past years because they want to put more and more matches on the card, and it's been dragging out longer and longer and longer. You're asking people to sit there 7-8 hours previously. I'm sorry, it gets so draining By the time you have your main events, it just people have no enthusiasm either at home or either they're live. I think going to 2 nights is probably a better way to go and create a 6 or 7 day period of time where the WWF can own the space with all the different properties that they have and all the different special events that they can put on within that 6 to 7 day period of time. I think, as I mentioned, on our Monday show, that the 2 day period, that's what I think they need to go to.
Exactly, because WrestleMania 35, I think, was somewhere past midnight at this point. So again, it would make sense. As for this pirate theme opening, because it was supposed to take place in Tampa Bay, and they had the Jack Sparrow voiceover. You know what? I don't know when you got sick of Captain Jack Sparrow. I would say for me it was after Pirates 2. I go to Disney World every time. They still have somebody dressed up as him outside the attraction, recruiting kids to become pirates. I could give or take it. I didn't think it worked too well. And the fact that they showed the same thing in night 1 and night 2 got a little long in the tooth, and Stephanie McMahon standing behind a teleprompter and saying, "We're going to make you smile," and kind of feeling forced and taking over the business. And then the other thing that I did not like was Rob Gronkowski as the host, because this kind of came in and out with him. The problem that I had with Gronkowski is the first time I heard of him was on a Family Guy episode, and he had terrible line reads. He's not that big as the way they made him on Family Guy, but I didn't understand why WrestleMania needed a host and why they needed him. He barely had brought anything. No, actually, he did not bring anything to the pay-per-view. So it would have made sense if you would have brought somebody from the Buccaneers, not somebody from the Patriots. So, and the fact that he wore the same outfit in both nights, you could tell that was pre-taped. That felt very awkward. The other thing that was awkward was, I understand that the superstars were pretending that there was a live audience, and they would, looking like they're facing a crowd, even though they're at their production site or their training center in Orlando. It doesn't work that well. I understand they want an audience, and I give credit to the Kabuki twins that were trying to do this and other superstars. It felt very, very bizarre. I just, I eventually went with it. It was an art project. I feel that will be in the MoMA next to, the video of the guy who you just watch him eating at different angles. But out of the 21 matches that because you got 3 dark matches that we'll talk about, but out of the 21 matches, how many do you think, just total of matches, not what they were, but how many matches do you think were actually worth it?
I'd probably say about 4 or 5, no more than that between both nights.
Okay, fair enough. Between both nights, I am going to go a little bit generous and go about 7 or 8. The dark matches, you had Cesaro versus Drew Gulak, Liv Morgan versus Natalya, and then you had the newly crowned WWE champion against the Big Show, and apparently he's got a.
Well, that was Monday Night Raw.
Yeah, but they actually, for some reason on Wikipedia, because I saw that too, but Wikipedia apparently is making this a dark match that they taped and then put it on Raw. So who the hell knows? But Big Show apparently now has a sitcom, so that's kind of interesting on Netflix. Yeah, but
so
no.
Let's get back to the WrestleMania.
Yeah. So let's get back to this. Okay, matches that did not work for you. Like out of all the matches, which one didn't work?
Well, I was talking to the ESO guys. I was talking to the guys at the ESO network about this, and first off, I'm going to go ahead and talk about the 2 pre-produced events, aka the Boneyard match with Undertaker versus AJ Styles, and also the Firefly Funhouse match. Say that 10 times fast. Firefly Funhouse match between John Cena and the Fiend, Bray Wyatt.
Yeah.
I'm going to say, if you count it as a match, I'm going to probably say the Firefly Funhouse match was probably the worst thing I've ever seen in my life as a match.
Okay.
People are going to say they love it. In fact, most people say they loved it. For me, as someone who was hoping for a match between the two, maybe obviously going into a weirder direction, perhaps that I was prepared for, but I was hoping for some type of confrontation, and nothing came about of it. Nothing came out of it, and it really was quite depressing and a waste of my time. As someone who embraces the type of nostalgia that normally would appreciate, just didn't get into it. And like I said, if you count it as a match and not as an experience or sports entertainment, it's probably the worst thing I've ever seen. Now, if you don't count it as a match, then it was just for me, just boring television. But then again, during the course of that 2 days, there was a lot of boring television. The Boneyard match as a presentation was okay. I didn't think was that bad. I didn't think was that great, but for what it was, it's fine. I think the Matt Hardy skits from Impact from several years earlier were not much better, much more innovative because it was fresh at that time. This seemed to play off of that. And I know there were people that were involved in that were involved in this, but I'm just going to say right now that between those two pre-production matches, there was a lot of time and effort put into it, and I give them credit for that. But one was executed okay, and one was executed not so well because it just seemed to be laughing at the face of wrestling fans.
Okay, it's funny that everybody's bringing up the Bray Wyatt, especially when Titus O'Neil goes, "What did I just watch?" Or Krusty the Clown going, "What the hell was that?" Here's my argument. When I found out that Bray Wyatt was going to go against John Cena again, I was like, well, we saw their feud, and I did go back on the network, and I did watch those matches. Like, what else can they do that they already did, and why is Bray Wyatt no longer the champion again? Why did it go back to Goldberg? And I'm watching Bray Wyatt repackage himself in the Firefly Funhouse and it's the Fiend, and I love the match between him and Daniel Bryan at the Royal Rumble. But I kind of ask myself, what else could they do that they didn't already did, especially with the psych outs? How can they top it? And then I was like, well, the Firefly Funhouse match is going to be like between Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton, going through a haunted house and going back to the ring and pre-taped, and who cares? I subscribe to a couple of podcasts with Jim Cornette and Bruce Pritchard, and if you're wrestling fans, you know who they are. And also with Eric Bischoff. And Cornette really hated this match. For me, I was kind of like, if this is in a ring, then it kind of reminded me of the Doink Crush match where you have two Doinks coming down, referee's knocked out, and there's going to be outside interference. Now, what would have happened if this was actually in a ring with fans? I guess he would have been knocked out, and coming down to the ring would have been Bray Wyatt, and somebody would have been dressed up as the Fiend, and that's how it would have ended. I don't know if this is the last we're going to see of John Cena. I really don't care, but you know what? It was David Lynch directing a WWE movie. I'm okay with that. The Boneyard was, of course, it's just to show that Undertaker still has it, because what else could he do? He's done so many of these different matches. He's done everything from a casket match to a coffin match. You go, Brooklyn. There you go, Brooklyn. So I'm kind of like, what else could John Cena, Bray Wyatt, Undertaker, and AJ do that they haven't already done? It was experimental. I liked the Boneyard more. Wasn't too impressed with what was going on with Firefly, but I kind of accepted it. The one match I really didn't like, because it went way too long and it's heartbreaking, was
Edge and Randy Orton.
Yeah, because it was 10 minutes too long. I think if it was
I think you're being generous. I think you're being nice. I think it was actually, to me, about 20 minutes overdue. It really was slow. It really was boring. And it also, with the spot, which everybody's talking about, with the weights, showed an extremely poor taste, especially just coming off the Dark Side of the Rings episodes on Chris Benoit. Just extremely poor taste.
And you talked about that, and I noticed that too, and a lot of people have been talking about that. According to Edge, I don't think they were meant to do it intentionally. I think the problem was it was that Randy Orton was going to do anything to go after Edge's neck, and it was just the equipment was there. I'm not defending it. it's kind of those things, and I'm just going to move on with my life and just get over it. But yeah, Benoit is a hot topic. It was a great match for the first 10, 15 minutes, and kept going and going. I got a
They should have
drink.
just ended it after 15 minutes.
You know what? But here's what I did like about it, though. It ended with a concerto, which I was kind of disappointed that Christian wasn't going to show up. I thought he was going to either team up with Edge. I'm glad he didn't team up with Orton and interfere, but I don't know where else Edge can go. Are they going to have him wrestle the Fiend? And are they going to have him become champion again? I mean, if you want to talk about worst matches as well, other than the Intercontinental Championship match, because it doesn't matter who won, who lost, it told a story, and it was a great one too. But even the tag team championship matches, but once upon a time, the WWF championship meant something. Those matches meant something. To me, when I watched Goldberg versus Braun
Well, actually,
Strowman,
both title matches, whether it's Goldberg versus Braun Strowman and also Drew McIntyre versus Lesnar, they were essentially the same match. Big move,
yeah,
finishing move. Who can hit the finishing move the most? And then that was it.
here's my control.
Yeah.
Here's me putting in WWE 2K, and here's me going, okay, Strowman, I'm going to select him for a championship match, and I'm going to use my controller to give him all his finishers and make him powerful, and then I'm going to select Goldberg as the computer opponent, but I'm going to make him weak and not give many finishing moves, and the match is going to end in less than 2 minutes. And as for Drew McIntyre, as soon as he went in, bam, bam, bam. All he did, it's kind of like with Seth Rollins last year facing Goldberg, doing the finishing move, and it's done. And every time they keep giving Brock Lesnar the belt, he has it, he holds it for a year, and he loses in 2 minutes. And I don't get it. I don't know what Coffey did wrong. I don't know if he wasn't connecting with the fans, but if he wasn't, he wouldn't have held the belt for so long. I'm not understanding the purpose of keep giving this to Goldberg, and then it was supposed to be Roman Reigns, so he would have lost it to Roman, which still makes zero sense because he's not connecting with anybody. And I know why he wasn't there because of cancer and his immune deficiency, but I don't care anymore. Who has these belts?
Well, we've talked about the bad parts, and there were quite a few bad parts of WrestleMania, or at least disappointing, I should say. The two pre-production matches, in a lot of people's opinion, were good. Some of them were not so good. For us, they were take it or leave it, and in some cases left it. The match between Edge and Orton, everybody, it's universal that thinks it went too long. And then the two title matches were essentially the same thing, and unfortunately, were both disappointing ways to start new reigns. But there were some good points. Before we head on out, there's got to be some good points to this card. And there were some matches that were really, to me, pretty good. I'll start off with the women's tag team match, the WWE Raw tag team titles. I think that was a really solid match.
Yes.
For what it was, they tried hard. I also think that the Rhea Ripley versus Charlotte Flair match, I thought that was pretty good.
No.
I disagree with you.
No, you know why? Because here's the thing.
Well, okay, the ending result people are having an issue with.
No, it's not even the ending result. It's just that, you know what? Is Charlotte there because her last name is Flair? Because there's so many other women right now that are so talented that I don't understand why Charlotte had to win the Women's Royal Rumble. I mean, you have all these other talented women. If Alexis Bliss can take a step back and go for the tag team belt, there was no reason to put they could have put anybody in there. I don't see the purpose of keep pushing her because her last name is Flair. That's all.
There were also some other good matches. Obviously, Kevin Owens versus Seth Rollins. That was a very, very good match. And there were some good points of WrestleMania. Again, we don't want to totally trash on WrestleMania. And I went into great detail on the ESO network. But yes, you said?
Otis's match was underrated.
Well, okay, Otis's match might have been underrated, but I felt it was a match that was better suited for one of their TV shows, Raw and SmackDown. I think there were several matches on this 2-day cards that didn't feel special, that they felt like they were just added filler because it was a 2-day event, and they didn't make them special enough to say, hey, you know what, this is worthy of WrestleMania. And they felt more like matches that would be better represented on SmackDown and Raw. But there were some good matches if you search them out. Some of the, if they didn't treat it, I know that being in the Performance Center was kind of not only affected you have no crowd, but also affected so many people from there have been trained there. And they felt like in some cases that it was a training match as opposed to a real match. Some of them were going through the motions. Some of them were just jogging or lightly just stepping into whatever counters or wrestling. Some of it felt like they weren't even trying hard. And maybe it's the fact that because they weren't in front of such a large crowd, it played into what they were doing psychologically. But there were points in time where you could see that some of the wrestlers out there, and yes, like I said, wrestlers, and I know you're not supposed to say that when it concerns WWE, that they weren't giving it their all. But then, and again, there were some that were going out of their way, but it just, to me, there was some issues and points of time where you could see that because they were so used to being in the Performance Center, that they felt like, you know what, I can just go out there, go through the motions, and go home. And everybody will go ahead and understand because we're in the middle of a pandemic. But we're watching something that people are spending a great deal of money on for both days. And I felt that not always everybody was giving the effort in order to go ahead and justify that pay-per-view.
Yeah, I mean, a couple of the matches, I'm sorry, but the Elias King Corbin, there was minimal effort. I think the tag team triple threat with the ladders, because that's just getting really like, you didn't have the height and the width to put the correct ladders in. It should have just been a regular triple threat match. As for the Aleister Black, Bobby Lashley, I like them, but it's still WrestleMania, and I felt like they treated it like a Monday Night Raw. There were a lot of wrestlers that were given the opportunity, and it's WrestleMania, and you want to make yourself known for WrestleMania, even though there are so many pay-per-views a month now. Yeah, I felt that there were a few, even the Becky Lynch. Again, it's not a question of who won, who lost. It's who can put the other one over and who can get over. And I just felt like that match was doing great. And then all of a sudden it ended, and I was kind of like, okay, let's just wrap it up. And again, we can even the championship matches, Paul Heyman was not being or acting like Paul Heyman, and that was another disappointment. Gronkowski, again, as I said, to be the 24/7 champion made zero sense. R-Truth I've met, very talented, underappreciated performer, and what they're doing with him is really sad. He should have been in a triple threat for the IC. I think, again, my final verdict is the pros were definitely the Kabuki Warriors versus Nina Jax and Alexa Bliss, Bryan for the Intercontinental Championship, Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins, Otis, Undertaker. Again, I mean, the Street Profits, I really did not care too much about. The Bayley elimination match, I mean, if Lacey's not connecting with the fans and you really had to push Naomi because she was really making an impact.
Well, I think it's all about Bayley and Sasha Banks between those two, that dynamic, and I think it's going to lead to a match between those two.
Yeah, but it's got to happen a little faster, and I know who's, and Braun Strowman, him being champion at this point, it's just too little. And I said this, that whether this was live or not, him being champion at this point is going to be too little, too late, and he is kind of like Goldberg, where he's just a powerhouse, and that's it.
Should have been 2 years ago when he had a great deal more momentum.
Yeah, this is kind of like, but a WrestleMania moment. I think Otis picking up Mandy Rose was kind of interesting, but I give this, in fairness, I'm giving it a B- because the Boneyard match is in a class by itself. So if I can pick one match for to seal the fate of WrestleMania 36, I'm going to stick with my allegiance, and I'm going to go with Undertaker versus AJ, because what else could they have done? And this probably was one of the smart, because it was everything. It was a street fight, no disqualification, no count out, and buried alive. It was perfect. This is what the Rest in Peace match should have been like between him and Giant Gonzalez in SummerSlam '93.
I thought it was okay. Like I said, it was okay, and I had no problems with it. I think for what it was, it was what it was. But
Yeah.
wrapping this up, my friend, I just wanted to ask you if you could give an overall grade from 1 to 10. And again, I feel that everybody should be nice and be somewhat more lenient due to the circumstances that they were given. So I'm going to, in my grade, I'm giving it a 6. Despite all the bad stuff that was on there, I'm giving it a 6 out of 10. Normally, I would have probably given it a 4 out of 10 for the deal, but I'm giving him an extra 2 points, and I'm being generous. And you can send your comments to me as far as Pop Culture Cosmo and whatnot if you want to go ahead and say differently. But no, I want to hear your thoughts on a final score for the.
Well, I've already discussed my pros and cons and what the moments are and what worked and what didn't work. I'm going to be extra generous because despite all of it, I was never bored. I mean, there were times I would go and get a sandwich or use the bathroom for the Bailey because it went a little too long, and with the Edge and Orton. But between both shows, I'm giving this one an 8 out of 10 because, again, I think I know who's really deserving of a push and who isn't. And thankfully, out of all of them, if I could pick one superstar at this point, besides Otis, I'm going to pick our Intercontinental Champion, none other than Sami Zayn. I think Sami Zayn really, as a comedic villain, he's working better than Corbin with that crown, and just like he's a Saturday morning cartoon character from Land of the Lost.
Yeah,
So
they had a solid match, Daniel Bryan and Sami Zayn. Nothing that was a show stealer like I was hoping for, but it was a solid match nonetheless.
and Kevin Owens, I think also, despite everything, I think he really should have faced Goldberg or faced Brock for the belt. I think Kevin Owens should get another win. I don't think and the same thing with Kofi. So I think Kofi should get another chance at the belt, but that's all I got for now.
Kevin Owens getting a push. I agree with you. And I said that on the ESO network. So you want to check out their show on a WrestleMania wrap, on the WrestleMania wrap up on the ESO network. But also saying here now that Kevin Owens, I think, should be given the green light, and I think there is enough behind him to go ahead and justify him being the future as opposed to Drew McIntyre. We'll see how far that goes. It's a new direction for the WWE. Drew McIntyre may be the answer. Not sure. We're going to have to wait and see on that. But it was WrestleMania. It was a 2-day event. I'm hoping that they'll return to that process in the future going forward instead of the drag out one night extended deal. So here's thanking you for taking the time, Noah, for speaking to me. And I wish you all the best. And I will see you on the Monday show when you talk about a little bit more retro gaming in mind.
You got it.
Thanks, my friend.
All right.